Sirens wailing, tires screeching, a blur of flashing lights tearing through the night. Police chases are some of the most dangerous spectacles on the road, where desperation collides head-on with the law. What starts as a routine traffic stop or a suspect trying to escape often spirals into high-speed chaos, leaving twisted metal, shattered glass, and sometimes tragic loss of life in its wake. Now, will uncover 5 of the most horrifying police chase car crash deaths, moments where reckless speed and split-second decisions ended in disaster no one could outrun.
A police pursuit ending with a deadly crash and 2 children losing their lives. Thank you for joining us on a busy Friday night on the Fox 5 News. I'm Kathleen Bade. It started as a police chase before the suspect hit another car, then fled on foot.
It was a November night in Evansville, Indiana, November 29, 2017. A young mother, 23-year-old Janie Carter, had just left her mother's house with her partner, 26-year-old Terrence Barker, and their 2 little ones, 2-year-old Princess and 7-month-old Prince. Before pulling out, Janie carefully buckled her children into their car seats in the back of their beat-up 2003 PT Cruiser. She leaned over and kissed them both, a quiet promise of safety. Terrence sat down beside her in the passenger seat. But just blocks away, fate was already racing toward them. Around 7 p.m., Evansville police noticed a black 2017 Chevy Impala parked near Bayard Park Drive. A quick check of the plates revealed they didn't match the car. Officers stepped in for a routine check. That's when everything snapped. 2 men bolted back into the Impala, the driver slamming the accelerator down hard. His name was Frederick McFarland. The chase barely lasted half a mile, but in that short, violent stretch of road, the Impala roared to 74 miles per hour. And then came the intersection. Monroe Avenue and Linwood Avenue, 2 streets that would become a crossroads of life and death. McFarland blew through a stop sign at full speed. At the very same moment, Janie's PT Cruiser crossed into the intersection. The impact was savage. Metal crushed against metal, and in an instant, the family's car was hurled into a tree. The PT Cruiser twisted around the trunk. 7-month-old Prince was thrown from the car. 2-year-old Princess stayed strapped in, but the force of the crash was catastrophic. Terrence took the worst of it, absorbing the deadly blow in the passenger seat. Janie, broken and barely conscious, clung to life. Across the street, a neighbor named Tanisha Given heard the deafening collision. She ran outside and froze at the sight of the mangled car against the tree. Within moments, police swarmed the scene. Some thought the wreck was McFarland's car and approached with guns drawn. Then a voice pierced the chaos, faint and cracked. "My baby! My baby!" Prince was pronounced dead right there on the street. Princess was rushed to the hospital. She passed soon after. Terrence, unconscious and gravely wounded, died later from his injuries. In the middle of it all, Janie, pregnant at the time, was the only survivor. McFarland was taken into custody, and nearly 3 years later, he pleaded guilty to resisting law enforcement. He was sentenced to 15 years, but the pain his flight had caused could never be measured by years behind bars. Janie sued the city of Evansville, arguing the police never should have chased a car over something as minor as false plates. In 2022, the city settled for $1.75 million, careful to call it a compromise, not an admission of fault. When she entered court, she struggled to speak, her voice carrying the weight of trauma no mother should know. She had survived physically, but she lived with PTSD, haunted by that night. She gave birth to the child she was carrying, a daughter she named Miracle. Later, she welcomed a son named Legend. Her mother, Sarah Johnson, stood beside her, reminding everyone that the new children brought light, but the wound would never close. At the crash site, neighbors and strangers alike left flowers and toys at the scarred tree, the place where an ordinary family's life was torn apart in seconds.
A head-on crash today in South Texas left 8 people dead. Officials say police were chasing a suspected human smuggler when the driver crashed into an SUV, killing 2 people from Georgia.
The morning of 2023 on U.S. Highway 57 near Batesville, Texas, began like any other. Jose Lurma, 67, and his wife Isabel, 65, were making their way south in their Chevrolet Equinox. They had been married nearly half a century, 49 years together, and were likely headed to Mexico for a visit. Isabel had even posted a cheerful birthday message to a friend less than an hour earlier. 2 people in love, seasoned by life, doing something as simple as driving down a rural highway. They had no idea their journey was about to end. At that same time, a white 2009 Honda Civic barreled down the road. Behind the wheel was a 21-year-old man from Houston. His car was crammed with 5 passengers, later identified as Honduran citizens, believed to be in the U.S. without legal documents. Law enforcement would confirm later. This was a smuggling run. When a Zavala County deputy tried to stop the Honda, the driver refused. He hit the gas instead, sparking yet another high-speed chase in southern Texas, a region where these pursuits have become frighteningly common. Witnesses recalled the Honda swerving recklessly, desperate to outrun the flashing lights behind it. And then came the moment of decision. The driver swung out, trying to overtake an 18-wheeler in a no-passing zone. Maybe he thought he could make it. Maybe he was panicked, blind to anything beyond escape. But coming from the other direction was the Equinox, Jose and Isabel inside. The impact was catastrophic. Both cars collided head-on, the sound echoing across the highway like an explosion. The Equinox burst into flames almost instantly, trapping the couple inside. Both died there, their lives cut short in an inferno of twisted steel and fire. The driver and all 5 passengers were killed on impact. In the span of seconds, 8 people were gone. Photos from the scene later showed nothing but devastation. The Equinox reduced to a charred shell, the Civic torn apart like paper. Texas DPS officials confirmed what many already feared. This was another smuggling attempt gone horribly wrong. But for the Lerma family back in Georgia, those words meant nothing compared to the reality. Their son, Jairo, broke the news online. His grief raw, his words heavy. He created a fundraiser to bring his parents home for burial. He wrote that their loss had left their hearts and souls shattered. By that Friday, over $7,000 had poured in, along with hundreds of messages of support. The couple had been just 1 month shy of celebrating their 49th wedding anniversary. The tragedy drew national attention. It was the deadliest migrant-related vehicle crash in the U.S. since 2021, when 13 people died in California. In Texas alone, more than 500 high-speed pursuits were reported in El Paso that year, many reaching speeds over 100 miles per hour. The numbers keep climbing. The American Civil Liberties Union of Texas has tracked over 100 deaths linked to Border Patrol chases since 2010, with a sharp rise in recent years. Critics argue the pursuits are too dangerous, turning highways into killing fields. Law enforcement counters that smugglers cannot simply be allowed to vanish into the night. Even new pursuit policies, urging officers to weigh public safety before chasing, can't undo the split-second decisions of a driver who refuses to stop.
Heartbreak tonight in Victorville after the tragic death of a San Bernardino County Sheriff's deputy killed in the line of duty.
The young father, husband, and 6-year veteran of the department was killed in a violent crash during the pursuit of a...
It was the morning of March 17, 2025, in Victorville, California. For most, it was an ordinary Tuesday. But for Deputy Hector Quist Jr., 36 years old, it was supposed to be a day off. Instead, he had picked up an overtime shift, the kind of sacrifice he was known for. He had been with the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department for 6 years, and though he was dedicated to the job, those who knew him said his greatest devotion was to his wife and 2 children. He was more than a deputy. He was a brother, a son, a husband, a father, and once a football coach who inspired kids long before he ever put on a badge. Just before 11 a.m., deputies at the Victorville station spotted a stolen car near Mojave Drive and Omarosa Road. Behind the wheel was 22-year-old Ryan Dwayne Turner Jr., a man with a long history of trouble. Turner was no stranger to police. He'd been caught stealing cars before, arrested for running from law enforcement, and had already caused a crash during a pursuit the year before. He should have still been behind bars, serving a sentence for that crime. But because of early release laws, he was out, free to run again, and run he did. When deputies tried to stop him, Turner hit the gas, the stolen car screaming past traffic lights, swerving recklessly, hitting speeds of over 100 miles per hour. What followed was chaos, the kind of chase that tears through a city like a hurricane, leaving everyone else at its mercy. Deputy Quiz joined the pursuit, closing in as the chase cut through Victorville's intersections. But in a matter of seconds, everything changed. Turner's desperate flight had set the stage for tragedy. As Deputy Quiz pushed forward, his patrol SUV collided with a sedan driven by 23-year-old Marceline Demian, who had been making a left turn with the green light. The impact sent Quiz's vehicle careening into a light pole with such force it snapped in half. The crash tore through the street, knocking out power to nearby homes, the sound echoing like a bomb blast. First responders swarmed the scene, but the damage was done. Deputy Quiz's injuries were catastrophic. Despite desperate efforts, he died there on the road, a father and husband lost in the line of duty. Demian survived, though badly hurt. Through tears, she later explained she never saw him coming, that his sirens weren't on. If I had seen him, I would have stopped. Meanwhile, Turner kept going. He ditched the stolen car near Zuri Lane, fleeing on foot. Even in handcuffs, deputies said he tried to run again. Prosecutors revealed he had been intoxicated that morning. His charges mounted: evading police, vehicle theft, and now, second-degree homicide. The weight of the loss fell hard on Victorville and far beyond. Deputy Quist wasn't just a badge number. He was a Rialto native, a Carter High School graduate, a man who once coached football at his alma mater and later played in the National Public Safety Football League. His teammates remembered him as competitive, but it was his children who knew the truest version of him. A father who loved them more than anything in the world. The community's grief spilled into the streets. When his body was escorted down Interstate 15, firefighters and first responders lined overpasses in salute, helicopters hovering above in a solemn tribute. The next day, candles and flowers piled high at the crash site, glowing reminders that his life mattered. His sister Dominique's voice broke as she said, "My brother was a good man. It wasn't in vain." His uncle Pedro Rivera added, "Putting on that uniform made him proud every day." On April 17th, nearly 3,000 people filled the Ontario Convention Centre for his funeral. His children's voices, recorded ahead of time, played for the crowd. "I love you, Daddy. You are my hero, and I'm going to miss you." There wasn't a dry eye in the room. The service ended with a rifle salute, a flyover, and the haunting sound of taps.
This afternoon, the man accused of leading police on a high-speed chase, then crashing into a car, killing 2 little boys. He was supposed to appear in court.
That did not go as expected.
It was December 8th, 2023, in San Diego, California. A quiet night on Interstate 805, where cars hummed steadily under the glow of highway lights. Inside a modest Honda sedan sat a family of 4. In the back seat were 2 little boys, 8-year-old Malachi and his younger brother, 4-year-old Mason. Their mother, Victoria, rode in the front passenger seat, still learning how to navigate life after losing her husband the year before. Behind the wheel was a close family friend, their nanny, guiding them safely down the road. Suddenly, headlights tore through the darkness. A BMW, barreling down at nearly 100 miles per hour, came out of nowhere. In an instant, metal collided with metal. The Honda spun violently off the freeway, slid down an embankment, and slammed into a tree before bursting into flames. When the smoke cleared, the unthinkable truth was revealed. Malachi and Mason were gone. Their lives ended in a heartbeat, while their mother and nanny clung to survival, broken and bloodied inside the wreckage. The driver who caused it all was no stranger to police. His name was Angel Velasquez Salgado, just 20 years old, unlicensed, reckless, and already known for running from the law. That night, he wasn't fleeing for robbery, drugs, or weapons. He was running from a broken headlight. Officers first noticed his car on 32nd Street, then tried to stop him when he pulled into a driveway that didn't match his registration. Instead of pulling over, he chose chaos. He hit the gas, tore through stop signs, swerved into traffic, and even rear-ended an elderly woman. Witnesses later said his speed felt unreal, close to 100 miles per hour. And with every second he stayed on the road, the risk grew heavier. The chase stretched across freeways like a nightmare with no brakes. Northbound on Interstate 15, eastbound on State Route 94, southbound on Interstate 805. Sirens screamed through the night, but no one could stop him. Finally, near the 43rd Street off-ramp, he lost control and veered onto the shoulder, straight into the Honda carrying Malachi, Mason, their mother, and their nanny. The aftermath was chaos. Flames lit up the night sky as emergency crews rushed in, but for the boys, it was already too late. Their small bodies couldn't withstand the violence of that crash. Victoria was pulled from the wreck, barely alive, while the nanny, burned and battered, fought to breathe. And Salgado? He ran. He stripped off his clothes and tried to hide in nearby streets as if shedding his identity would erase what he had done. But there was no escape. Police caught him just blocks away. Later, the truth unraveled. This wasn't his first chase. Just 7 months earlier, Salgado had fled officers in a different pursuit. He should have never been behind the wheel. Yet here he was again, destroying lives that had nothing to do with his choices. Prosecutors charged him with everything: murder, manslaughter, evading, hit and run, driving without a license. At first, he denied it all. But in August 2025, he admitted guilt, standing in court and finally confessing to what everyone already knew. He now faces 30 years to life in prison, awaiting his sentence. But punishment doesn't erase the silence left behind. Malachi and Mason's laughter no longer fills their home. Their father was already gone. Now their mother, a woman who has battled lupus since childhood, carries not only her illness and her injuries, but the crushing grief of outliving her children. The family's godmother, desperate to give them a proper farewell, started a fundraiser. Thousands poured in, messages of heartbreak from strangers who couldn't believe 2 young lives could be taken over something as small as a broken headlight. It was January 22nd, 2019, in Birmingham, United Kingdom. Holly Burke, a 28-year-old police community support officer, had finished her day, slipped behind the wheel of her Ford Fiesta, and set off along Lordswood Road. She had no way of knowing her life was about to be stolen in the most brutal way imaginable. At nearly the same moment, across the city, a Renault Scenic tore down the Aston Expressway. Behind the wheel was 42-year-old Darren Ohm, a man with no license, no insurance, and a bloodstream poisoned with substances more than 20 times the legal limit. When officers on routine patrol spotted him speeding, they signaled him to stop. He refused. That refusal sparked a nightmare. A 14-minute pursuit across some of Birmingham's busiest roads. Ohm's reckless flight turned the city into his personal racetrack. In residential streets, he pushed 60 miles per hour through 30 zones. On the expressway, he soared past 100 miles per hour, weaving between cars, overtaking on the inside, and ignoring every rule meant to keep people safe. Police tried to stop him with a stinger device, but he blasted straight over it. CCTV cameras later captured him running red lights, forcing himself into oncoming traffic, and roaring past City Hospital at twice the legal speed. For 12 miles, he played roulette with strangers' lives, each turn of the wheel a spin closer to disaster. He later claimed he panicked, that he only wanted to pick up a friend and didn't want the car seized. But panic doesn't explain why he had a criminal record stretching back decades. It doesn't explain why, after prison sentences for robberies, firearms, and even smuggling abroad, he still chose to get behind the wheel high, unlicensed, and dangerous. What it does explain is this. He was running because he knew exactly where his choices would lead him. And he was right. Just before 11:30 p.m., Ohm approached the junction at Bearwood Road and Hagley Road. The lights glowed red. He didn't stop. He blasted through at nearly 80 miles per hour. At the very same second, Holly Burke's light turned green. She drove forward, trusting the rules of the road that every driver relies on. In an instant, metal met metal. Ohm's Renault slammed into the driver's side of Holly's Fiesta with catastrophic force. The crash was devastating. Witnesses watched in horror as emergency crews swarmed the scene. Police officers were already trying to save her, performing CPR, their hands pressing against a chest that should have never stopped breathing. Paramedics took over, but nothing could be done. Holly Burke was pronounced dead where she fell, her life stolen in a single violent collision. Ohm crawled from the wreck with only minor injuries. He lived. She didn't. Arrested on the spot, he was charged with causing death by dangerous driving, driving without a license, driving under the influence, and more. And when the truth came out, it painted a picture of a man who had spent his entire adult life as a danger to others, minus 44 convictions since 1993, weapons, robberies, smuggling, prison time. A man who had been free for mere months before once again destroying lives. In February 2019, a judge sentenced him to 9 years in prison with a 3-year extended license period, banning him from driving for 16 years. The court called him what everyone already knew, a serious danger to the public.